Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Threes In and happy 4th of July. 56 years ago today, I departed White House, Ohio, in Northwest Ohio, for Lowry Air Force Base, Colorado, to report for active duty. Now, my active duty date actually started on the 4th of July. So, I've always been really proud of that. I leave for active duty and the rest of the country takes the day off. They must have had great faith in me. Not only that, they celebrated my entry onto active duty with fireworks all across the United States, and I really appreciated that. So my first stop was at Chanute Air Force Base in Illinois, where my brother was stationed as a Minuteman missile technician. He was teaching at the schoolhouse then. He may have been, upon reflection, may have just been attending the course at that time. He later became an instructor. Okay, we got that cleared up. Spent the night in the barracks with him. That was an experience in and of itself. But I had a great time, and the next day we had breakfast. I was on my way out to Colorado. When I got to Colorado, I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't have any idea where to stay or how to find quarters, I suppose. We'll start with maybe checking in at the BOQ. So I drive up to the gates at Lowry Air Force Base, and the gate guard wanted to see my ID card. Well, of course I didn't have an ID card because I was just now reporting to active duty. So I showed the gate guard a copy of my orders, and he said, "Well, sir, these are okay, but they're not good enough. You need an ID card to get on base." Okay, here we go. Round and round. But having been an Air Force brat, I kind of had an idea how to handle this. I said, okay, we've come as far as you and I can come. I said, how about calling your supervisor down here? I've got all the time in the world to wait. So he goes into the guard shack, makes a call. A couple minutes later, the supervisor shows up, and really a nice guy. I presented him a copy of my orders and showed him my driver's license. And I said, now, young fella there wants me to get an ID card. Well, I can't get on base to get an ID card because I don't have an ID card. So maybe you have a solution. The guy looked at the kids and let them go. Okay, good. So we got that resolved. So I'm driving on Lowry Air Force Base, where they held the munitions school, Aerospace Munitions Officer School. Actually, it was munitions for everybody. Anyway, so I'm heading down the main drag, heading over to the housing office, and I drive by this building that said Aerospace, Home of Aerospace Munitions Courses, whatever. But they had a big hole in the side of the building. I guess they were bringing in some equipment or taking some out. But I saw that big hole in the side of the building. I went, oh, crap. You know, this is the way it's going to be. Okay. So I get over to housing office, lodging office, and they did not have rooms at the inn, nor did they have officer quarters. So I had to sign up for non-availability is what they called it at that time. Okay. That meant, okay, kid, go find yourself an apartment. We'll pay you TDY. We'll pay you, TDY per diem for the time you're here. That was a 6-month course. Okay, that'll work out fine. In the interim, I called my cousin, who was a Playboy bunny downtown. And I chatted with her a bit, and she said, well, until you find a place to stay, why don't you stay here with me? She said, I work nights. Go figure. And you'll be in school during the day. Well, that worked out fine. So I went down and caught up with her, and I'm thinking it was like a Sunday was when I reported into Lowry now. We more or less hot bunked it for about 3 or 4 days. She'd go to work, I'd go to bed. She'd come home, I'd go to school. So that's kind of the way that worked. And it worked out fine until I was able to find quarters that worked for me. So Aerospace Munitions School, that was a 6-month course at that time, and it was all classified. And since it was classified, there was no homework. We couldn't take anything home. You know, you can't take home, you get the idea, schematics or triggering devices or anything like that. So we would report to school at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we got out at 11:30. that was so cool. That went on for 6 months. That was just so cool for a young second lieutenant that just had a brand new 1969 Firebird. I was getting a paycheck and I just had a ball. Okay, in the class, we had, I think there were 11 of us, if I remember right. And of the 11, 6 had washed out of pilot training. And a couple of those guys were really just had sour attitudes, if you will. But by and large, most of the guys were pretty well pumped up at that time, and we all got together pretty well. There was one guy, though, that was a little bit off center, I guess you could say. He just didn't think like the rest of us did. He had washed out of pilot training, and he blamed the wing commander for not liking him. Oh, it happens frequently. Give me a break. Anyway, he had this Afro-American roommate, Andrew, and there were some grumblings about midway through the course that Andrew might be gay. Well, good for him. I could care less myself, but in those days, being gay, especially in a career field where you had you dealt with classified materials all the time, it was illegal. I know it's archaic. That's just the way it was. Okay, so Tom, Andrew's roommate, he was a loose cannon. Probably best to describe, and I think Tom would agree with me today if he ever sees this, so don't worry about it. Anyway, so Tom would show up late. We had 6 o'clock report time. He thought nothing of coming in at 6:10 or 6:05 or 6:15. He couldn't be bothered by it. And he'd come in and kind of disrupt the flow of the class in the beginning. And our class commander, a guy named Captain Sophie, he told Tom, he warned Tom, he said, listen, he says, just about had enough of this crap. He says, one of these days you're going to have a come to Jesus meeting with the higher authorities. Well, Tom just blew him off. He would have been a pilot had the wing commander not liked him. Okay, got that. So this one day, Tom shows up, and he's 15 minutes late, and the instructor had enough. So he tells Tom, all right. Tom walks in the room, and he's got a plate of bacon and eggs and so forth. He sits it down and starts eating it. I mean, what an idiot. Okay. So anyway, the instructor says, all right. He says, it's time. I've had enough of this. So he says, why don't you just head on down to the admin office and report to Captain Sophie. So Tom goes down to the admin office, reports to Captain Sophie, and Captain Sophie says, yes, what is it, Lieutenant? And Tom says, well, I just came to report that one of our classmates is gay. Oh, jeez. Well, that spun up the admin. I mean, they went from calm to instant spin up. They pulled the OSI into the investigation, completely forgot that Tom was late. And I don't think a word was ever said about that, but Andrew got tossed out of the Air Force because Tom was late for class waiting on his breakfast. At any rate, that's just one of the facets of drama, I guess you could say, that went on. Munition school was, I hate to say it was a blast, but it was. It was a lot of fun. The first 6 weeks we dealt with learning electricity, electrical circuits, diodes, resistors, transistors, and the like. We built circuits and so forth. We had to have an understanding of that in order to have an understanding of weapons release systems. Okay, that was a lot of fun. And once we got that done, we spent 2 weeks learning and reading and learning regulations. That was the most boring aspect of the course. But it served me well in later years because I knew how to do research on regulations whenever I was looking for something. And then followed by that, we got into the mechanics of various weapons and weapons system. One of the things they had that was kind of fun was a walleye there. A walleye was a very, very early guided munitions. It used a pair of crosshairs like so. And it was all black and white. And what you do is you lock up a target in the center of the crosshairs like that. The navigator the gib in like in an F4 would lock that up, and the wall, once you had a lockup, then it would fly to the target. It was very archaic. It was primitive, but sometimes it worked. It sure worked better than that damn bullpup. Once you launch that bullpup, you didn't know where that was going to go. And the problem with the bullpup is pilot had to fly both the airplane and the bullpup and fly the bullpup into the target. Who wants to do that? Anyway, the walleye, you could kind of lock it and then leave it for a while. And the seeker head was really, really kind of neat because we could open the doors of our hangar with that walleye on, wheel it over, power it up, and then lock on airliners as they were flying into Stapleton. And you could watch the fins follow the airliner down. Of course, it couldn't launch. It was unpowered. It wasn't going to go anywhere. It wasn't a threat to them. Anyway, that was one of the weapon systems that we were working on. The other thing I wanted to tell you about munitions or weapons school was they introduced us to tear gas one day. Okay, so they take a bunch of us, put us in a Quonset hut there on the base, and we're all there in our 1505s, our khaki uniforms, and they gave us gas masks, but we had them in the bag strapped on our belts and so forth. So once they got us all in the room, they took a couple canisters of tear gas and pulled the pin and threw them in there. Holy crap, that stuff is nasty. So anyway, that thing came and we had to wait a couple minutes or whatever the time was and let that gas permeate through the building. And then they said, okay, now put on your mask. So we did. And that was the end of the instruction for that day. Well, anyway, as we were putting our gear back in the boxes and whatnot, they told us really explicitly, now, do not go to the officers club for lunch. He says, you got that tear gas in your uniform. Well, where do you think we went to lunch? Went over to the O Club. And God, that was fun. We walked in there, a bunch of dumbass second lieutenants. Well, most of us didn't go. Some of the class didn't go. I went. And the only reason I went was so that 50 years later, or 56 years later, I could tell this story. That's the only reason I went. Okay, so we go over there. We're standing in line in the cafeteria in the officers club. And every now and then you see somebody peel out of the line because they couldn't stand it anymore. And we're going, what? What's wrong with you guys? Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Another thing they took us and showed us about was det cord. Oh man, I love that stuff, detonating cord. It does not burn, it literally explodes. So they took us out to this range and they had 2 telephone poles, I don't know, maybe a couple thousand feet apart, and they had 3 other poles tied with det cord suspended on a piece that ran across the whole thing. And they had an igniter where we were at. So they took this igniter, they fired it off, and it seemed like all 3 of those poles dropped at once. That's how quick that det cord was. It was really impressive. And whether or not I heard the story at the school or later on, I heard that it was common practice for the grunts in Vietnam to take some of this det cord. They used it to clear trees with, to make landing pads for helicopters, because you just take a couple strands of this det cord, and it looks like clothesline, old clothesline material. So you take this det cord, you wrap it around a tree, stand back with a detonator, fire it, and the tree's going down. Boy, that sure beats a chainsaw any day. Anyway, they used to take this det cord and they'd wrap it around a tree, fire it off, cut the tree down, and then if they had 3 prisoners, they'd take regular clothesline. They wouldn't use det cord, but they'd take clothesline, wrap it around the 3 gomers, hook it up to a det cord, and the guy would walk them off. Boy, they weren't going to do anything because they had seen the demo. The last demo that we saw at munition school was they took us out to the Rocky Mountain National Armory. That was something to see because that's at the time in '68, that's where they made nerve gas. And so they take us in there, and they had all the tubing was clear plastic. and you could see this nerve gas running through those plastic tubes. That was something to behold. That's an image I won't ever forget. And they had canaries. Oh, they had quite a few canaries throughout the place because a canary was the most susceptible to exposure to nerve gas. So that was something that was kind of interesting to see. And I hope I never see that again. They've since dismantled Rocky Mountain National Armory, as far as Arsenal, as far as I understand. At any rate, we spent 6 months there, and then from Lowry Air Force Base there in Denver, where they at the time had a 9-to-1 male to female ratio there. That was interesting. I was assigned to Nellis Air Force Base out in Nevada. So when I left Lowry that December, I was thinking, I am really going to enjoy this Air Force career. And as I look back at it 56 years ago, I subsequently did enjoy my Air Force career. And I enjoyed it then every bit as much as I do today. And so July 4th is always a special time for me. It's a special day for me. It's a day that I remember, a day of pride, and a day I reflect on so many friends, so many of you. And it's a day of gratitude. I often hear on occasion, thank you for your service. But what folks don't realize, it was a privilege and an honor to have served you. So I hope you enjoy the 4th today. I want to point out something here real quick. Oh, I'm going to get chewed out for setting the coffee cup down next to the microphone, but that's the way it is. Okay, take a look at this. I have 10 digits. I was going to say fingers, but then there would be somebody in the comments section who would have to say, well, 2 of them are thumbs. Give me a break. I've got all 10 of them. The reason I have all 10 of them was I learned as a kid, when you light an M80, don't hold on to it. If you have to hold on to it at all, usually just light it and get away from it. That way, when you're 78, you can make your own video and show us how many you have. That being said, happy 4th of July. I hope everyone has a safe one. Thanks for listening, and it's just so good to see everyone. This is Bobo. Base Gear Stop.